Rabbi Sai Azoi. Only 10 days until the election. Only 5 hours left until kickoff. That's a normal way of anticipating a major event. And yet here we find ourselves anticipating the most major event in world history, Shavuos, Matan Torah, and we find ourselves counting up the Omer. Isn't that the opposite of the way it's supposed to be? This, of course, is a famous question. Here's another kasha. From the moment Yaakov Avinu met Rachel, he knew that she was destined to be his wife. And yet, when he met her brother Lavan insisted that he wait before marrying her. Not 7 minutes, not 7 hours, not 7 days, not 7 months, 7 whole years. That must have been an agonizing, painful wait, even for Yaakov Avinu. Yet the pasuk says that out of Yaakov's love for her, those days passed by in his eyes fleetingly, kiyamim achadim. Isn't that totally counterintuitive? My hi. That question about Yaakov Avinu, that's the question of Rav Shimshon Pinkus. He was born in 1944 in America. He became a close Talmud of Rabbi Malin in Yeshivas Beis HaTalmud. When he moved to Eretz Yisrael, he learned initially in Brisk, and after his marriage to Rabbi Chaim Mindel, he went on to live in Bnei Brak, and he eventually became a Rosh Yeshiva and a Mashgiach in the Negev. At the behest of no less than the Stipler, for the last 20 years of his life, he served as the Rav of the prominent town of Ofakim. He also traveled a lot with a particular emphasis on South Africa. His mastery of Nigla and Nista, his passion for Tefillah, his beautiful writings, his Hasmada, his Pashtus, his Masira to the Klal, the list is very, very long. Rav Pinkus rarely spoke about himself. That was really not his style. One particular episode he did relate, which he says was a pivotal point in his life. One Pesach Ben Azmanim, he was left by himself in his apartment next to the Brisk Yeshiva as all of his friends went back to Chutz La'aretz for Chag. The responsibility of doing B'dikas Chametz on this old, cluttered apartment was entirely his. He spent hours and hours and hours doing B'dikas Chametz until close to midnight. He finally finished and he collapsed on a chair, very content that he managed to perform this mitzvah, which had been so painstaking for him, but thoroughly exhausted. But suddenly, a thought came into his mind. There was a communal attic which needed to be checked. And halachically, it was everyone's responsibility to check it. But young Rav Pinkus knew that if he didn't check it, no one else would. But he was totally exhausted. A battle raged in his mind. Should he go up and do B'dikas Chametz or not? He decided not to give in. And using his last ounces of energy, he climbed the stairs and opened the attic door, only to see a room full of thick dust, old objects and clutter. The sight was overwhelming, but he made a decision to do a mitzvah which it was unclear that he was mechuyev in the first place. He decided to stick to it, and with his body shaking, he set about his task. He brought buckets of water after buckets of water to clean the place, and covered in mud and plaster, with tremendous siyata d'shmaya, he worked through the night until close to Netzach Hama. He finished the B'dika. He describes a kirvas Elokim which he felt, which stayed with him, not just through that night, but even through Seder night, and beyond that, for the rest of his life. From that moment, he writes, I started rising to higher and higher levels in my Avodas Hashem. He had made amazing use of his time which justifiably could have been spent passively in his apartment, asleep. But he decided otherwise, and with that use of time, he had grown in such a significant, phenomenal way. Now back to Yaakov and Rachel. Why did those years in Yaakov's eyes seem so fleeting, those whole 7 years? Rav Pinkus explains, based on the words of Rav Aaron Cutler, with the following mashal. If someone said to you, do nothing for the next 10 days, and at the end of those 10 days, you'll get $10,000, that time would pass by very slowly. It's just an empty waiting period. Whereas someone told you, listen, for the next 10 days, you can get $1,000 a day if you go out, work hard, and gather it. Well, that time will pass by very quickly. You look at every day as an opportunity to gather, to amass, to seize your opportunity. So too, Yaakov Avinu. Says Rav Pinkus, he looked at those 7 years as an opportunity to build himself, to become the father of the Shiftei Kar of Klal Yisrael. That was productive time. So it passed by super quickly. And that, he says, is a secret of why we count up in the Omer. These days are not just an empty vacuum of time, like Lahavdil, the 5 hours until kickoff. No, on the contrary, Adarabba. Every day we're getting ready for Shavuos. We're trying to work on ourselves, to gain and to build on what came before in preparation for Matan Torah. So each day has significance in its own right and builds on the day before. And that's why we count up and not down. Rav Pinchas's use of time for the 56 years that Gadlus had it was incredible. Habatzas Torah, Shiurim, Sforim, learning, activism, leadership, and all over the world.
And Baruch Hashem, we did things which are exploding in the whole world. B'kedusha u'v'tayra. And we will do kahena v'kahena. Oh, but what's about dimension? Mir machen Menschen.
In 2001, he died tragically and suddenly in a car crash, along with his Rebbetzin, who was a renowned mechaneches in her own right, and his daughter Miriam. In his very final shir, before getting into his car and making that fateful journey back to Ofakim, he told those people listening, these days you can buy everything you want. Everything's got a price. There's only one thing you can't buy, and that's a minute of time from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. May we all be zoicher to use our minutes, hours and days of Sfiras HaOmer to build ourselves in preparation for the great day of Matan Torah. Good Shabbos.